board meeting to order. We're convened as of 5:30 p.m. I'd respectfully ask everyone to remain muted unless you are recognized to speak. Thank you all for joining us this evening. As the board has gathered to in-person meetings for our monthly gatherings, please note that the committee meetings of the RTD Board of Directors will still be held remotely via Zoom and will be audio and video recorded. The meeting recordings, along with the unofficial minutes of the meetings, will be posted as soon as practical on the board's website. Please visit rtd-denver.com, and a live stream of this meeting is also available via RTD's YouTube page. During tonight's meeting, we're also providing Communication Access Real-Time Translation, also known as CART. Anyone who would like to access this service should send an email to the RTD board office at rtd.boardoffice@rt-denver.com, and a link will be provided. Additionally, the CART transcript can be automatically translated into Spanish for anyone who would like to access a live transcript of this meeting in Spanish. I will now call on Director Guchenritter, if you wouldn't mind leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director. I'll now call on Director Whitmore, if you could please read out the land acknowledgement.
The RTD Board of Directors acknowledges that the land on which our buses and trains operate is a traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, Arapaho, and other contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to these lands. We honor our indigenous elders who have traveled, inhabited, and stewarded these mountains, hills, and plains throughout generations. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle the ongoing legacies of inequity of the Native and all historically oppressed peoples, and recognize their current and future contributions in the district as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'll now call the roll. Treasurer Banker. Director Busick.
Here.
Director Catlin.
Here.
Director Chandler.
Present.
Director Geisinger.
Here.
Director Guchenritter.
Here.
Director Guzman.
I'm present.
Director Harwick is an excused absence. Director Larson.
Here.
Secretary Nicholson.
Online.
First Vice Chair O'Keefe.
Here.
Director Pagliari.
Present.
Director Ruscio. Second Vice Chair Whitmore.
Present.
So we currently have 13 directors present, 2 absent. I'll now call on Director Larson to please read out the Statement of Employee Appreciation.
The Regional Transportation District Board of Directors recognizes that RTD's dedicated workforce is the lifeblood of the agency. Every day, RTD employees do extraordinary things to make lives better through connections. We honor their work of delivering transit excellence, service, and value to the community, especially demonstrated during difficult and stressful moments. May the actions taken by the Board of Directors demonstrate our profound gratitude, commitment, and support towards all RTD employees.
Thank you very much, Director. Moving on, we're going to go to our retiree awards. This is one of the most rewarding responsibilities of serving on this board, and that's the opportunity to recognize and honor our RTD retirees. The time has come for us to acknowledge the dedicated employees who have recently concluded their careers and transitioned into retirement. At this time, I'd like to read the names of those employees who have retired since March, or who will be retiring by the end of this month. Susan Altus, Senior Manager, Real Property, 31 years. Jill Fontaine, Lead Dispatcher, 20 years. Luis Carlos Lucero, Jr., Bus Operator, 21 years. Bud Nicholson, Light Rail Vehicle Maintenance Supervisor, 32 years. Kirk Osborne, Mechanic, 25 years. Teresa Rinker, Manager, Market Development, 25 years. We do have one retiree in attendance this evening, and that is Jill Fontaine. Mr. Greg Smith, our Acting Assistant General Manager of Bus Operations, would you like to please say a few words before we give the floor to Ms. Fontaine?
Thank you, Chair Bouquet and members of the board. As introduced, I'm Greg Smith, Acting AGM of Bus Operations. I would like to take a moment to introduce our retiree in attendance, Ms. Jill Fontaine. Jill started her career actually with our fixed route contractors, where she held positions such as bus operator and instructor for 12 years. Jill joined RTD officially in 2005, where she held positions of bus operator, station starter, dispatcher, and most recently as lead dispatcher for 6 years. Whether it be a flood, blizzard, or large event, Ms. Fontaine set the gold standard for leadership in our dispatch center. Thank you, Jill, for all your contributions to the bus operations department. We will miss you. In recognition of your dedication to RTD, I would like to present you with this retirement plaque and invite you to say a few words.
Thank you all very much. I've been doing this, as Greg said, for a total of 32 years, and it's been a wild ride sometimes. But I've had the chance to learn and grow and progress, and I appreciate that very much. And I thank you for what you said about the employee appreciation. My job also is about assisting the operators out on the street when they have a problem and they need police, they need help with a broken down bus. They have, have an impromptu detour because somebody closed the street and didn't tell us. It's my job to figure out what kind of help they need and how to get it to them. And some days it's hard, some days it's fun. But like I said, it's been a wild ride, and I appreciate you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Ms. Fontaine, and again, congratulations to all our retirees. All right, moving on. We're going to be moving to our public participation. This is our time for public participation, which is open to anyone who'd like to address the board. I do want to note that earlier this afternoon, the board voted to approve an intergovernmental agreement, or an IGA, to further a project to bring joint rail service to the Northwest Corridor. This IGA will help facilitate the ongoing planning for potential rail service in that corridor. If you are here to speak of that IGA, we welcome your comments and wanted you to know that the board has approved the IGA and looks forward to continuing to examine ways to bring rail service to the Northwest Corridor. As we have both in-person and remote attendees, in-person comments will go first, followed by those who are participating remotely. For those attending in person, please come up to the podium when your name is called. If you have not already signed up to speak and would like to do so, please approach the podium when I call for any additional speakers. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak and have not already done so, please make sure you raise your virtual hand or press *9 on your phone. Staff will unmute you when it is your turn to speak, and if you're dialed in, please press *6 to toggle your mute settings. And please bear in mind that by participating in this process, you are being recorded. If you do not wish to be recorded, then your comments will have to be submitted via writing. If any speaker has documentation or reference materials for the board, or if any member of the public would like to submit their written comments, please email those materials to the board office at rtd.directors@rtd-denver.com. During this time, the board will not offer any direct comments or responses. However, if you would like to be contacted regarding your public comment, please email the RTD board office at rtd.directors@rtd-denver.com. Speakers should begin their remarks by stating their names and will have up to 3 minutes to provide their comments. Our first speaker of the evening is James Flatam from Greater Denver Transit.
All right. Good evening, RTD Board Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is James Flatam. I'm with Greater Denver Transit. Tonight, I'm going to be commenting and expanding on a piece that GDT contributed for the Executive Committee that is relevant to the entire board. But first, I would like to congratulate the RTD Board on proceeding with the IGA. This is a step that GDT finds to be absolutely critical in cooperation of furthering intercity passenger rail. So thank you for that. I'd like to talk about peer comparison and benchmarking tonight. And I brought a little bit of transit advocate lore. So for those of you who may not know, I actually was an RTD employee in 2014. I had an internship, and my internship at RTD was performing a benchmarking analysis. I benchmarked the construction of and the completion of the W line, which had just been completed 1 year earlier, against similar projects in the Western US. Part of the project was coming up with the list of the peer projects as well as the agencies that supported them. And this is actually something that I have continued to do beyond my internship. I've continued to benchmark RTD. And this is something, and it's an exercise that I think whether we're looking at evaluation of RTD's performance, also informing what is possible in terms of operational improvement, strategy, I think peer comparison is important. There is certainly no agency in the United States that is exactly like RTD. But GDT did an analysis of a group of 12, including RTD, we call the Western Dozen. All of these agencies operate a combination of local bus, street running bus, commuter buses, on highway coaches, as well as light rail. And they also include, most of them have some sort of commuter rail operation as well. Each of these delivered their rail between the late 1980s and early 2000s to mid 2010s, similar to RTD. And each of these agencies has operational environments that have an enormous amount of similarities. So the list that we are recommending RTD adopt includes Salt Lake City's UTA, San Diego's MTS, NCTD combined, Austin's CAP Metro, Houston's Metro, Sacramento SAC-RT, Dallas-Fort Worth DART and Trinity Metro combined, Seattle's Sound Transit, King County Metro combined, RTD, of course, Portland TriMet, Minneapolis, St. Paul's Metro Transit, Phoenix's Valley Metro, and St. Louis Metro Transit. We believe that a consistent comparison of RTD on as many metrics as are available to this consistent set of peers that do not benefit from pre-World War II infrastructure of East Coast agencies that are exceptionally expensive and difficult to recreate in the modern day will further and advance conversations that ground RTD's performance in an operational reality. And we believe will point the way toward possible enhancements and improvements in terms of identifying best practices. We think this is going to be critical in terms of the agency going forward and informing what's possible. So that concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you all for listening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, James. Our next speaker is Mary Henick.
Hello, my name is Mary Henick. I'm an advisory board member with Parent to Parent of Colorado. Parent to Parent is a nonprofit that connects families of people with disabilities for advocacy, support, and resources. I'm here to talk about paratransit. I'm also a retired teacher, so today I have 3 lessons for you. Lesson 1, equity does not equal equality. The disability community is diverse. The one-size-fits-all model doesn't work. A blind person, a wheelchair user, and a person with an intellectual disability all have different needs. RTD staff seems to be mired in technical language like complementary, supplemental, and premium to describe paratransit services. This doesn't do anything to serve the needs of the riders. It would be better to focus on the actual needs of the riders. For some, Access-a-Ride is the best fit. For others, it's access on demand. As you know, access on demand is the most cost-effective option. Second lesson is doing some live math, live or live, what is that program? That one, math. It's a math lesson. The federal poverty level for a single adult is $15,650. That program, eligibility is 250% of FPL. It sounds like a lot, right? But let's do the math. 250% of $15,650 is $39,125. Now, Denver minimum wage is $18.81. If you work 40 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, full-time, that's exactly $39,125. There's no coincidence there. If you're working full-time at minimum wage, anything above that, you won't qualify for that program. So, access on demand is already, lesson number 3, access on demand is already too expensive. Uber and Lyft have raised fares approximately 7% over the past year. There's also surcharges involved with access on demand. If you're working an 8-to-5 job and you need to get to work at the same time everybody else needs to get to work, you might get hit with those, the surge pricing, which would put you over the $25 trip cap. You also need to tip the drivers. If you don't tip the drivers, you might get stuck in a loop where they start canceling your rides. So the true rider costs are often overlooked in the RTD planning. So I ask that you please do not increase the access on demand rider costs via trip caps, reducing subsidies, or putting up front fees. Look for better ways to meet the needs of all users of that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Our next speaker is Isaac Scholl.
I'm going to request a reasonable accommodation so that I could do Q&A with Isaac as he presents. Say your name.
Isaac Scho.
Do you work, Isaac?
Yes, I do.
What do you do?
I work for IT.
Do you like what you do?
Yes, I do.
Do you work full-time?
Yes.
All right. How do you get to work?
Uber and Lyft.
Good. Is it expensive?
Yes, a little bit.
Do you sometimes have to pay more for your rides? Do you have to
Yes.
pay more than what RTD covers for your rides?
Yes, I do.
What happens if you try to book a ride and it looks like it's going to be really expensive? What do you do?
Well, I have two apps that I'm running, so if one is expensive, I use the other app
Okay.
because I have.
Uber versus Lyft. Sometimes Lyft
Yeah.
is cheaper. Do you tip your drivers?
Yes, I do.
All right. For the record, Isaac spends about $400 a month using access on demand for his transportation to and from work and for meeting up with friends and going to grocery stores and doing other things that typical people do in a day. I'm good if we could move on to the next presenter.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Isaac. And thank you, Mary. Our next presenter or speaker is Tessa Putnham.
Same request for questions.
Absolutely.
What is your name?
My name is Tessa Putnham.
Do you work?
Yes,
What do you do?
I work at a preschool.
Good. How did you used to get to work?
Uber.
Why don't you use
It's
that anymore,
costing me too much money
right? Why don't you just ask your mom for more money?
because she doesn't have enough.
Okay. So now
I use
accessible.
Access-a-Ride.
Okay. You just started doing that though, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So It's been working okay?
Yes.
All right. Do you have any other friends who use paratransit? Do Access on Demand or Access-a-Ride?
Viz and then Katie used Access-a-Ride.
Right. Have they ever had any issues with Access-a-Ride? Maybe not picking them up?
Yes,
Yes? What happened?
it never came.
Never came. What, then how did they get a ride? What did they have to
They
do?
have to call their parents.
Yeah, okay. So there's some issues with that, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's all we need to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for
very
your
much, Tessa. Thank you, Mary. Our next speaker is Claudia Folska, former director for District E.
Okay, thank you. What is this? Okay. So I was like, well, I don't know who all does this, but I was cleaning my closet out the other day. And I got this box and you can see it's pretty old. And I opened it and what did I find in here? This is kind of slippery here. So many cute things. Well, look at this. This is my little ballerina costume. And with the sparkles and the feathers, right? I was a bluebird. Yeah. Okay, is that adorable? And the little headpiece with the feathers, I don't know what happened. Okay, so there was that. And then, oh my God, there were these little ballet slippers. You know, your feet grow faster than anything first when you're a kid. So that's why my nickname was Claude Hopper. Yeah, I had to live with that for years. Anyway, oh yes, and then look at this. So I got to perform this ballet at the Seattle Opera House when I was about 6. And then I found my Girl Scout sash. This is LA Troop 1212. We moved to LA after Seattle. And I brought this because, you know, I was able to go to those things and enrich my childhood, even though I was blind then. Because my mother had, you might recall, the good old Cadillac Coupe de Ville. And she was driving me all, see, I knew you appreciate this, all over town so that I could be having an enriched childhood. But then I became a single parent and I couldn't do that for my daughter. I didn't think that was such a big deal, but it really is. Today, with access on demand, I could have done that. God, sorry guys, it wasn't my plan. You always want to do something really great for your kids. Today I could, and today others here can, and they do because of access on demand. So I think it's really important you think hard about this. The other thing I just wanted to oopsie. The other thing I wanted to mention is you have a new RFP out that came out yesterday for Next Transit to integrate, which is part of your strategic plan, right, for this year, to integrate all of your mobile apps. And I've seen it, and it's woefully inadequate to support accessibility. And that's because the people who are writing these RFPs don't have a very good understanding of what accessibility is and how technology today can transform all of these things. And we know that's true because even the machine you're using here tonight to vote on your agenda still isn't accessible because RTD doesn't require that of the third-party vendors. So I think it's important for you all to really, you know, give a deep dive. But if you could reconsider this RFP, take it back to the drawing table, even though it's already hit the street. Addendums can be made or it could be withdrawn and improved upon. Thank you.
Thank you, former Director Folska. Our next speaker is Richard Bamber.
Good evening. Hi again. Richard Bamber, Greater Denver Transit. I want to talk about 2 agenda items, which is the approval of 2 contracts. One is for HVAC, I believe it's in the light rail facility. The other is the reconstruction of the Kalamath grade crossing, key part of the downtown rail construction. Once again, we have a situation where the directors are being asked to approve millions of dollars of public money on the face of a few pages of text, not really any details. Now, some of you may know that, my day-to-day job is working for a well-known commuter railroad. I won't name it, but my T-shirt gives you a clue. That railroad is operated by a joint powers authority. It automatically rolls up to a transit agency board. When we want to do anything, we want money. The minimum myself and my very capable office engineer have to do is provide a 10-page pack to the board. And that gets sent to our capital projects director. He'll then take that onto the board. As a minimum, we've got to write in things like justification memo, like why do you want the money? What are we doing? We have to put in a very detailed cost breakdown. Basically, if the contractor sends us line items and cost breakdown by line item, those line items have to carry on and go up to the board. I have to do an independent cost estimate. So that's get a second opinion of what our contractor is proposing, so we can see whether it's reasonable. There are a number of other things depending on whether we're going to run into union issues, whether we're going to run into time, whether we're going to cause major disruption. A lot of things, boxes that we've got to tick and prove to the board that we assess. So, and these packs, are all part of basically making sure that transit agency board knows exactly what they're approving. Every cent can be accounted for. And then we have to do it when there's a change order, when we want more money, when something changes. And that can be, and even we have to do it when we might reduce the scope of the contract. So we're actually going to hand money back to that railroad. And I think this is what you need to do to provide accountability. GDT supported directors. We asked directors to sign a pledge that they would oversee. I need to make a point. There is no reason not to think that these contracts have a problem. It's not all about saying that there's a problem with staff's work. It's about providing the oversight that the public elected 15 of you to do. I'd like to also finish by supporting the appointment of our Chair, Julian Bequet, to the Accountability Committee. We're quite excited about this, but we would remind the Chair that we want this committee to continue the work that was done 4 years ago. We have lots of reports, lots of data from 2021. Continue it. Please don't do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bamber. Our next speaker is Paulo Sorzano.
Hi, Paulo Sorzano, RTD Riders Alliance. Sorry, I'm a little tired. I just came back from the mountains and elevation was high. So, I just want to bring up the article that came out regarding Director Arusha and the tensions within the board. I just, want to stand up for her as far as I've known her and her character. As many of you guys know, I was very livid and I crossed the lines myself a lot of times. I can admit, reaching out to RTD board and staff, I was going through a lot of mental health things, partly due to RTD and PTSD about, getting beat up. And, I was off the rails a lot of times with phone calls. But in July 2023, I called her very livid about the R-line SCADA failures. People were apparently getting hit by cars, police cruisers at fast speeds, people possibly getting severely injured. And she was very gracious and she listened to me. And, I'm not sure if I would have talked to anybody else, I'm not sure that things would have been resolved. I know that our lines were shut down, but with her cool head and the way she treats constituents, at least myself, I think she's doing a great job. And, I like to point to what the ADA stuff she's done, the handicap stuff, the accessoride, a lot of the work she's done for low income. But, the main thing is that, the only other major articles I can think of, I really can't think of any major articles of RTD board working together and getting things done. The last major article I remember is 2019-18, Paul Solano, not me, but some other guy that cursing, screaming, insults on an elevator with other board members. That's all I remember, you know, and this is, we got to think about how RTD is coming across right now. We maybe this is the correct way, the way we should have gone, like in the similar fashion with the police chief, Joe Fitzgerald. You know, this is coming out very, I don't know, too suddenly, I think. And, you know, as an agency and publicly facing, we need to show, you know, that we're taking urgent things very seriously and not fighting while we're just pulling out of a police scandal, the maintenance. This is what the public is seeing. So I hope things change. Yeah, I hope so, because the public, again, is they're very frustrated, right? So they need to see some good stuff. So thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Paulo. Our next in-person speaker is Eric Smith.
Chair Bouquet, Eric is actually with the CAC, and you've got some time later in the agenda, Mr. Smith, under external entities update, if you would prefer to provide your report then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Minutes.
Sorry
Thank
for
you.
the confusion there.
Thank you, Eric. All right. Mr. Kroll, online participants.
Yes, at this time we have one individual online who has raised their hand. That is Tim Keenan.
Tim, you're recognized.
Hi there. My name's Tim Keenan. Thanks for listening to me for a sec. So I would be there in person, but I am gonna run right up to the 60 trip cap of Access on Demand this month because I picked up a lot of shifts at work. And a lot of times I work double shifts where I have a chance to go eat between shifts, and that, you know, takes another 2 rides. So they go pretty quickly sometimes over a span of a month. So I just wanted to refer to the latest staff recommendations. I'm grateful to see that they've increased the trip cap to 60 trips per month. But they did raise the fare to $6.50 per trip. You know, given the fact that Access on Demand is the cheapest, you know, $20 subsidy per trip, a fare of $6.50 for that seems rather high. That means you could be paying $390 a month if you go up to 60 rides a month, and that's not even including anything you might go over, you know, because I work out in Amazon out in Aurora, so almost all the time I go over at least by a little bit, so I have to pay that out of pocket. So that's quite a chunk of change overall. And as far as implementation, I thought that we were, and I know I'm not alone in this, I thought that nothing was going to be done until next year or in December when the new service, you know, updates come out. But the implementation timeline says August through October. So if, you know, you guys pass whatever you pass in July and you know, you're going to start implementing this right away, that seems real quick. And not something we would want to see. And I noticed that the 3/4 mile, you know, reverting to the accessorized boundaries and hours is still part of the recommendation. And I would again urge you to reject that because, you know, I know some of the, you know, I know Director Nichols and some of the board members spoke up against this at the last meeting, and I would urge that because I mean the people who are outside the area or who need this outside of hours really need it. So it just seems like it would not be worth the savings to get rid of this lifeline, because that's what it is, a transportation lifeline for these people. And I would just like to ask again to allow multiple stop rides, people to use that. It's less expensive and it's super convenient for the people who need to use it, whether it's picking up something on the way home from work or dropping your kids off on the way to work or whatever it is. It's really valued by the people who use it, and there's no equity basis for denying it. If you were to go that route, then the whole premise of access on demand doesn't make sense because you can't do that with Access-a-Ride. So I really hope that you take another look at multiple stops. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Tim. Mr. Kroll, do we have any other speakers online?
At this time, Chair Bouquet, I see no further hands raised.
Excellent. Are there any speakers in attendance who would like to speak? If so, please approach the podium now. Okay, seeing none, were there any emailed comments for today's meeting, Mr. Kroll?
Yes, there were several. I'll read them off here. Greater Denver Transit wrote in with a letter regarding many of the topics they discussed tonight, including the Central Park development, Calumet Rail contract, HVAC action item, and the appointment of Chair Bouquet to the Accountability Committee. Jamie Lewis and Tim Keenan both wrote in with comments with respect to access on demand. Christian Cruz and Alvin Cohen wrote in with respect to special event service improvement, and Alvin Cohen added comments about real-time communications. Brooke Shelley and Cody Bates both wrote in around E-line service. Marianne Overbay wrote in regarding Route 32 route extension with respect to the proposed service changes, and Don Anderson wrote in with respect to Route 24 frequency increase.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. With no other participants in the queue, we will now close public participation at this time. Moving on to our next item, we're going to be moving to our external entities report. There is one external entity report, and that is from the CAC, or the Citizens Advisory Committee, and CAC co-chair Eric Smith. The floor is now yours.
Good evening. So I'm Eric Smith, co-chair of the CAC. I don't have too much to go into tonight. One of my colleagues from the CAC, Joe Meyer, did brief the board earlier this evening about a letter that we wanted you guys to take a look at. And I do want to emphasize again, please read that letter, digest it, and get back to us if you feel that you need to. Right now, what I do want to go over is news from our community. There's some updates that our community has shared with us and some concerns as well. Let's see, right now, I don't have too many. The ones that I do have, one member did note that a route was renamed from P to PE, which caused some confusion about service changes. And let me see, requests were also made for increased service frequency, clear flag stop schedules, and better transparency regarding revised stop locations and service intervals along that particular route. There is also confusion between service changes for Route 34, as Jack talked about earlier, and Route 38, and riders are calling for more clarity on the RTD website as well when complex service changes are proposed. There also was a recommendation for the H-Lines stop at Southmore Station in favor of Broadway Station, citing improved connectivity and accessibility to other routes and other transfer services. Last but not least, I do have, actually one more concern. There was a concern raised about the usability of RTD's service change surveys. Specifically, members noted that the survey for LD1 lacked sufficient detail about the proposed changes, making it difficult for the public to provide meaningful feedback. Last but not least, we have what we call transit wins. Basically, it's when we share successes from the community and updates across our region. So from Highlands Ranch, they do have what they call the micro transit launch. And basically, it's a new microtransit service in Highlands Ranch that began operating on Memorial Day. Early feedback so far has been positive. Expectations for continued growth in ridership and improved local access is ongoing. Also, we have what we call micro mobility development. Basically, a new scooter sharing project was recently introduced in Greenwood Village and in Centennial. Also, Arapahoe County is progressing with a micro mobility study to assess the potential for expanded active transportation options in the region. I believe also Denver is doing something, or the city and county of Denver is doing something similar or wanting to do something similar along certain paths downtown, but don't quote me on that. Last but not least, service changes to Route 44 have been well received with reports of strong ridership, and riders are really appreciative of the 30-minute service frequency. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Eric. We appreciate you coming here. Thank you. Moving on to our audit committee report. Committee Chair Busick, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I was unable to attend this month's meeting due to a work conflict, and I want to start my report by thanking Audit Committee member Jim Brendel, who chaired the committee meeting in my absence. As a reminder, Jim is one of 2 external members of the Audit Committee, which is comprised of 3 directors as well as 2 external members. Jim did a great job chairing the meeting in his capacity as vice chair of the committee, and we're grateful for his service to RTD. Our external auditors at Plant Moran presented on, and the committee unanimously approved, the annual comprehensive financial report and report to governance, which is now on tonight's unanimous consent agenda. I want to thank Plant Moran, as well as former CFO Doug McLeod, CFO Kelly Mackey, accounting senior manager Byron Ayton, and the finance team at RTD for working to pull together a great annual financial audit. Once again, our auditors were able to provide an unqualified opinion that indicates that the financial affairs and controls of the agency are in good condition. Lastly, the committee heard updates on the progress towards our board-approved audit plan. Our internal audit team at Reuben Brown shared the results of the performance audit, which examined how our rail operations team is handling corrective action plans. Overall, the auditors rated this area as needs improvement, and the audit committee heard discussion on management's plan to improve in this area. The next meeting of the audit committee will be Thursday, July 10th at 2 p.m. I expect the majority of that meeting to occur in executive session, as the committee will be briefed on certain cyber security matters. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Committee Chair Busick. Moving on, we're going to go to our Finance and Planning Committee report. Committee Chair Guzman, do you have anything you'd like to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance and Planning met June 10th. I would like to thank the Operations, Safety, and Security Chair Rusha and Co-Chair Harwick and the committee for working with us and being so gracious on updating our work plans to achieve the goal of getting all of the board's work done in a timely manner. We sent 3 recommended actions to the boards tonight on a unanimous consent. We received the 2025 Q1 financial update and the 2026 budget development discussions in that meeting. If you have not had a chance to review it, I would encourage directors to do so. There's a lot of information there, and now is the time to receive that information back. There was a request to send any questions or concerns to myself, to the board office, so that we can work with our CFO and team to be able to bring back and continue preparing our budget development process. Our next meeting will be July 15th of 2025. And I do believe the Finance and Planning Committee, as part of the audit, one of the audit requirements that we were given last year, began the discussion on peer comparators, and we will return to that conversation later in the year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Committee Chair. It does look like neither committee chairs for Operations, Safety, and Security are on or present for tonight. So we'll skip that, and Committee Chair Guzman for Performance. It's back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Performance Committee met twice this month. The first meeting was on June 2nd, where we discussed the results of the 2025 employee survey. Good news all around. We are one RTD board and agency. All of our 3,000 plus employees are satisfied with their work, and they are demonstrating that through their responses to the results of the survey. I encourage everybody to take a look at that. I'm really happy that that has happened, and it was well-received information under the leadership and guidance of our General Manager and CEO, Deborah Johnson. We did go into executive session with General Manager CEO Johnson to have a one-on-one conversation, find out where things are at. We returned to the committee on June 23rd, where we discussed and received amazing survey results for the 2025 customer and community. We also received the data analysis. We are doing really well. We have a 3-year trend all to the positive. We are leading nationally. There's always more work to do, and we all know that. But what we are demonstrating is that the time that the board and the agency and staff have put in to develop our people power, to ensure a welcoming transit environment, to secure and make more safe our services, while being mindful of our budget and our finances, have led to positive outcomes, and we're excited to see that work continue. Excuse me, I'm having trouble with my allergies, so I'm trying not to cough while I do this. A large part of that work should be significantly and appropriately credited to our general manager and CEO, who has hired a team of people around her who are supporting the mission of making lives better through connection. And I think that on behalf of the committee, I can soundly say we appreciate all of your hard work. Everybody is doing their part, and we see the changes coming. They can feel really slow, but the remarkable increase in these results over time has been incredible. We also entertained the first discussion of the 2025-2026 general manager goals as a draft discussion. At that meeting, we had a robust conversation about the goals that were presented as a result of our retreat in June that happened between these two meetings. The general manager did present to us a set of goals that reflected what our priorities were. And as a result, a request was sent both by email and during the meeting to all directors of this board to please submit in writing by email to myself and General Manager CEO Johnson any comments, questions for clarification purposes so that we can engage in the conversation to bring forth a recommended action to the Performance Committee that will return to this board in July for approval going forward. That is the first step in the performance framework, and we are willing to do the work, and we are excited to work forward to that. I am not going to exclude the vice chair on this, and I made that clear in the meeting, but due to open records while we are having the primary discussion, please just send it to my attention and General Manager CEO Johnson. We will be meeting to discuss the feedback that we receive. Thus far, I have received feedback from one director only. I look forward to receiving it from the rest of you. If you did not attend the meeting or were unable to review it, the email does have the link to both the video and the document. And I believe the beginning time on the video, the YouTube video that's posted online, is 43:03. So you can start there if you want to get right to the meat of it, but go back and look at the review results for the surveys. They're really important. Thank you.
Excellent report, Committee Chair. I do see Secretary Nicholson, your hand is up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment that I was incredibly impressed with the facilitation of the most recent Performance Committee meeting on the short-term goals and the community and customer survey. We had not much time to get through two very important topics, and Chair Guzman really handled that meeting incredibly well. People were heard. I was skeptical in advance that we would be able to get through all of it, and I feel like he did a yeoman's job of facilitating that process so far, and I feel really comfortable that we're in a good place on getting to some very solid goals by the end of this. So just wanted to call that out.
Thank you very much, Secretary. Yeah, just my PSA for board members, please make sure you watch the recording if you have not gotten a chance. And I can't stress enough, please send via writing to Committee Chair Guzman and GM CEO if there's any comments that you have or questions that you have in regards to those goals going forward. So thank you. All right. Thank you all. Moving on is the approval of board meeting minutes and committee reports. The board and committee meetings minutes were included in the board packet. Are there any corrections from the board for the minutes to be approved this evening? Secretary. Never mind. Anyone else? Good. Unless there's objection to considering the minutes all at the same time, may I please have a motion to approve the minutes for the following meetings? May 28th, special board meeting. May 28th, board meeting. June 2nd, performance committee. June 10th, special board meeting. June 10th, finance and planning committee. June 11th, operations, safety and security committee. June 12th, audit committee. June 18th, executive committee. And these all happened in the year 2025.
So moved, Guzman.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Guzman is the mover, O'Keefe as the second. Is there any discussion on this motion? I'll now call for the vote. Since we see no discussion, any no votes? Perfect. All right, that'll pass 13-0, 2 absents. All right, moving on to our chair's report. I do have some stuff to share with all of you. So I'd like to start off with a huge thank you to all of you as my fellow directors, GMCO Johnson, General Counsel Snyder, our board office staff, and our media team for being present for our second board retreat of the year that took place on June 7th. Our June 7th retreat was dedicated to identifying the major themes that we wanted to see for our GMCO short-term goals going into 2026. I want to thank you all for a robust conversation and discussion that we had on June 7th. I do truly believe all of you have brought forward the best interests of your constituents and were able to identify 3 major themes from this retreat. 1, a goal of increasing our overall customer satisfaction and creating a more welcoming transit environment. A goal related to an increase in boardings or ridership. And finally, a goal related to service reliability. Directors, we were presented with a draft of these 3 main goals for the GMCO during our performance committee meeting yesterday. The goal for this board, one of the goals for this board was to pass, for this to pass prior to the finalization of our agency's budget. So I do want to thank you all for taking your Saturday morning and dedicating that. It helped meet one of our board goals for this year, and I was very impressed with the discussion we had. I was glad we were able to lead that. So the goal for this board going forward is to have these goals passed during our next performance committee meeting, which will be happening in July. And like I said, I do highly recommend my fellow directors, please watch that recording if you did not get a chance to be there. Directors, last Wednesday, June 18th, I got the opportunity to do several media appearances. I would like to thank CBS 4, Denver 7, Fox 31, and KOA Radio for taking the time to conduct these interviews. I also want to say a huge thank you to our RTD communications team. Thank you, Marta, Tina, and Tara, for all your help with this. It wouldn't have been possible without all of your help. And of course, Mr. Kroll for being present and helping with any potential feedback. So did want to thank you all. First time in a little bit where we've had a chair sit down with media and open up to media for potential inquiries. So it was a very fun experience for me. And if anyone is interested in checking it out, it is part of an email with RTD in the news. And hopefully folks get to learn a little bit more about their board. Finally, I would like to say a thank you to GMCO Johnson's leadership and to all our RTD staff for some terrific results in our recent customer survey. From 2024 to this newest data for 2025, we saw an overall satisfaction increase in almost every area that was rated. I just want to say a huge thank you, not only to your staff, GMCO Johnson, but to all of our employees. It is all the effort that our people do to make this agency great and continue on a path of greatness. And we are people ultimately moving people, and we can't do it without great people. And we've had some great results. So I just wanted to thank you and all our staff members for the incredible work that has happened. And again, I highly recommend the public to check out some of those survey results. I think we're on an excellent path going forward. Always room for improvement, always room for improvement. But I'm very optimistic about this agency's future. With that, I'll give it over to you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Bouquet, and good evening to you, all board members, and to those that are assembled both virtually and here in the boardroom. As introduced, I'm Deborah Johnson, RTD's General Manager and Chief Executive Officer, and at this time, I will share with you just a few highlights of activities and strategic endeavors since our most recent regular board meeting held on Wednesday, May 28th. On Wednesday, June 4th, I, along with Chief Steve Martingano, attended a monthly meeting of the Metro Mayor's Caucus to share updates regarding transit security and agencies' efforts to support a welcoming transit environment. For those who may be unfamiliar, the Metro Mayor's Caucus is a collaborative membership organization for the elected leaders of 41 municipalities in the Denver metro region. The caucus focuses on working to enhance relationships among localities and leverages dialogue to identify common purposes, challenges, and solutions that benefit both the region and member municipalities. I would like to say that our engagement was very well received and further amplifies those survey results, and that those assembled shared their anecdotal information that they have garnered from their constituencies relative to notable changes they have seen in and around our network. From Thursday, June 12th through Tuesday, June 17th, I attended the UITP Global Summit. UITP is the International Association of Public Transport. It is a nonprofit member-led organization for public transport authorities, networks, and operators, policy decision makers, scientific institutes, and the public transport supply and service industry that works to advance sustainable urban mobility. The summit welcomed over 10,000 public transport professionals, industry experts, and leaders representing all public transit modes from over 100 countries. Having recently been appointed to serve as one of 4 United States representative members of the UITP Policy Board for a term commencing this month and continuing through June 2027, I was asked to moderate a session on Monday, June 16th, titled Safe Travels, Global Perspectives on Transport Safety and Security, a discussion of technology-driven solutions, policy frameworks, and collaborative approaches to transit system safety ensued. Panelists included leaders from the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, Transport for London, Metro Sao Paulo, and CDC NSW, which is an agency in New South Wales, Australia. The panelists each presented an overview of specific challenges they have been working to address in their respective transit systems, many of which mirrors what happens right here in Denver and elsewhere in the U.S. For instance, the panelists from Brazil spoke about security enhancements to curtail rail system copper wire theft. My colleague from Transport for London was talking about assault on transit workers. So suffice to say, transit systems globally have the opportunity to learn from one another to improve operations locally. On Friday, June 20th, I, along with First Vice Chair O'Keefe and Director Chandler and Government Relations Officer Michael Davies and Commander John Holloway, participated in a meeting of the Arapahoe County commissioners, mayors, and managers. RTD's delegation welcomed the opportunity to engage with the local municipal and county leaders to discuss transit service, delivery, and system maintenance, as well as personal security, as well as showcasing data that basically amplified our improvements in security-related incidents, and much like we experienced at Metro Mayor's Caucus, had a warm welcome relative to the different initiatives that we have undertaken, and talked about the partnerships that we can leverage to go forward. And as we heard from Director Guzman, we don't want to rest on our laurels, because we do know this is about continuous improvement, and we're here for it. Additionally, I'd like to share something that's critically important as we talk about people in the people business. Just on last Wednesday, June 18th, I and members of the leadership team joined our learning and development colleagues to acknowledge the agency's investments in its greatest asset, which is people. This event was a celebration of individuals who have leveraged the Professional Development Program funds, or PDP funds as we refer to them, to succeed in academia. The PDP funds are available to all RTD employees to pursue education related to their jobs, as well as to seek professional certification or licensure, participate in professional organizations in furtherance of their job performance, and other related activities. In total, 8 individuals were honored during the ceremony in recognition of their completion of their degrees. Several received bachelor's degrees and some master's degrees. I am immensely proud of those individuals for earning their degrees while continuing to contribute to RTD. And I can tell you that these individuals are rock stars within our agency. Our encouragement of employees' use of PDP funds is one of many factors contributing to the increases in favorable responses seen in the employee survey conducted in April 2025. More specifically, as directors who were in attendance at the June 2nd Performance Committee, or those that have watched the video, overall measures of employee satisfaction and engagement have continued to increase over the last 2 years, with a 15% increase in favorable responses in 10 of the 17 areas surveyed, including questions related to feelings of engagement and support, organizational alignment, physical and psychological safety, and many other areas. Just last week, RTD's administrative offices were closed on Thursday, June 19th, in observance of Juneteenth, which became a federal holiday in 2021. Juneteenth commemorates the emancipation of the last enslaved people in Texas, specifically Galveston, Texas, on June 19th, 1865, which was actually 18 months after the Emancipation Proclamation, marking the end of slavery in the United States. This observance honors the resilience, contributions, and ongoing fight for justice, equity, and liberation within Black communities. Transportation has always played a pivotal role in shaping access to opportunities. The limitations of mobility faced by underserved groups, including Black Americans, throughout history underscore the need to create transportation systems that are accessible and equitable for all. Today, Juneteenth serves as a reminder that true freedom is not only about legal rights, but also about the freedom of movement and the ability to access vital services and opportunities. As this board is aware, RTD's organizational values include passion, respect, diversity, trustworthiness, collaboration, and ownership. These values are shared beliefs demonstrated in all we do collectively. In keeping with these values, RTD honors the legacy of the LGBTQI+ community's enduring fight for equality, justice, and acceptance through the celebration of Pride Month each June. The agency's observation of this month closely with our ongoing commitment to ensure the public transportation is accessible, welcoming, and equitable for all, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. And as we know, public transit is not merely a service, it is a vital lifeline connecting individuals to employment, education, healthcare, and community. For the LGBTQI+ community, equitable access to transit is not just about convenience, but also about safety, dignity, and respect. As part of this month of celebration, I am proud of the members of Team RTD who have volunteered to participate in the Denver Pride Parade, which will be held on Sunday, June 29th. And lastly, but certainly not least, related to the strategic priority of customer excellence, at this time, I will share an update on forthcoming agency state of good repair efforts over the course of the second half of 2025 and 2026. Okay, there we are. Thank you, Taishrei. So really quickly, what I want to do is to ground the board in a path forward relative to back to basics and talk more about our proactive strategies as we look to further our asset renewal program as it relates to downtown rail reconstruction and talk about next steps. So as we know, and I do understand that many of you most recently heard from our colleagues in our asset management work group as we talk about the importance of state of good repair. And one thing that's keenly important, like many transit agencies, RTD is an asset-intensive organization. Maintaining assets in a state of good repair is critical effort for several reasons, and they're outlined on those sub-bullets there. As we talk about guarantees, previous investments in the system remain intact, supports operationally safe, accessible, and dependable services, and preserves investment in reliable transit infrastructure. More importantly, recognizing that we have a federal partner with the Federal Transit Administration, transit agencies within the purview that are federal recipients of those dollars must ensure that they have a transit asset management plan. And recognizing that RTD's transit asset management plan continues to be evaluated and adjusted and prioritized. And this is keenly important, especially as we talk about where we are with our budget development process. And more so, recognizing the special board meeting that took place earlier today. We heard from Director Guzman, who spoke about the importance of state of good repair. So I'd be remiss not to flag that because we're actually in a position now because decisions were made 2 decades ago that we're playing catch up on now. So as we talk about the adherence to the TAM plan, it informs intentional development of the agency's annual budget, as I previously stated. One thing that's quite important, and I'm sorry I keep moving around this mic as I ensure that I'm on point here. As we talk about our fixed assets, RTD must maintain an inventory of its assets and their physical condition. And so recognizing that we must employ analytical processes or tools to assist in our capital asset investment prioritization and a list of prioritized investments. And the rail segments in downtown Denver that will undergo reconstruction are such prioritized assets. This slide speaks for itself as we talk about agency assets, critically identifying 3 enhanced focus areas as it relates to asset renewal. It's basically ensuring that we identify equipment and infrastructure at the end of its useful life. We want to minimize risk and maximize safety, and then prevent unplanned service disruptions. And I really do think that we, as an organization, over the course of the past 3 years, have been able to capitalize on the experiences learned, i.e. when we did the retaining wall caps, for instance, and we commenced that project in 2023, and we only had a small window in which to do that just by virtue of where we reside with the Four Seasons. We in turn had a better understanding, leveraging our service planning to minimize those impacts to the riding public. And you will clearly see that's why we are being intentional from our proactive strategy vantage point. And as we talk about infrastructure, as we know, being proactive, we are planning service disruptions, and this just further encapsulates what we intend to do, and I will refresh as it relates to what we have done. But clearly, we're talking about the full depth rail reconstruction, overhead wire replacement that's critically important. I was sharing this with the chair earlier today. Just over the weekend, Dave Jensen, Assistant General Manager of Rail, and I were on the telephone because due to the fact where we reside, we often have problems with our overhead contact system due to the heat. In the winter, we have snow that gathers and a wire could break. I mean, woulda, coulda, shoulda, but there's certain elements that we could do as we go forward to be more intentional and purposeful about ensuring the sustainability of our network. Hence, that's why we're here now as we talk about proactive strategies. So intentionally, I have a picture of Alati, our light rail operating facility. Some of you may recall I talk about our transit network from the light rail transit perspective and say we only have one operating facility. The reason why I call this out is because oftentimes we hear from members of the public, your constituents, talking about, oh, they should do work at night and they should do this in this window. I'm orienting you intentionally to showcase where our light rail facility falls because it's actually on the D line. And the reason why I point that out is when we look at all the light rail lines that we have, the L, D, H, the E, and the R, and the W, when you look at the furthest location, I'm going to give you an example, our light rail pullout in times Monday through Thursday. The W line, the last trip, leaves Denver Union Station at 11:52 p.m. The last train arrives at Jeffco at 12:36 a.m. That train is then deadheading all the way back to Alati. That trip takes an hour and 17 minutes. And so for all intents and purposes, the first train pullout is at 3:56 a.m. the next morning. So there's only 2 hours and 3 minutes in which there's not revenue service. The reason I call that out by virtue of that network, if you're doing any work, you have to de-energize the rail. That means all the trains have to pull in. So considering where the L line runs, it only takes 26 minutes for that consist to get back to Alati. So it runs the gamut with deadhead times between 26 minutes all the way up to 1 hour and 17. As we go to the next slide, right-of-way access, this further illustrates what I was just communicating because I wanted to showcase the network relative to the operating facility. When we think about de-energizing power and you look at the graphic that you have there, for all intents and purposes, 20 hours out of 24, we are providing some form of light rail transit services to the public. And all light rail vehicles, as I indicated, must return to the yard before we can start work because we have to take down power. And if you take down power, you can't get a train off the track, but that limits the window. So as we go forward, we're talking about being intentional, and that's why I'm sharing this with you all as you consider come July, the service changes that we are putting forward because they go hand in hand with the work that we are planning to ensure that we can keep our system in a state of good repair. And so these strategies and tactics that are before you on this slide basically are what we're doing, leveraging these elements to ensure that we have an understanding from the time perspective, the consolidation of work, how we need to communicate, And then what's critically important, just by virtue of where we are, providing bus shuttles. It's another important factor where we don't do this at this agency, be it good, bad, or indifferent. A lot of multimodal transit agencies in this country and 6 others where I work, typically when you hire somebody to come into the agency to be a light rail operator, they start out in bus, so they possess a CDL. And so you're not looking for volunteers as you go forward to do a bus bridge because you already have people that are allocated to a work shift. You're just putting them on a rubber tire vehicle instead of a steel wheel one. But we have to make concessions because decisions were made as we were building out the system. Let's bypass bringing them in as a bus operator first. We're hiring directly for a light rail operator, hence they may not have a commercial driver's license because that's not needed to operate a light rail consist. So as we talk about communicating out specifically what it is that we are doing, there's different tactics being leveraged for different audiences. And Mr. Summers and his team, as we saw last year, did a yeoman's job relative to engaging with various stakeholders in and around the city and county of Denver, leveraging different community-based organizations and neighborhood organizations. And so as we talk about our diverse audiences, this is just a snapshot of what our communications plans will entail as we go forward with the critical work we need to ensure the sustainability of our network. So really quickly, and I'm going to move on and wrap this up so we can get on with the meeting, but this is important from the vantage point of managing expectations. Here, reconstruction project. Most of you all were here, but there's some that weren't engaged with us from the vantage point of being on the board of directors. But one thing's for certain, when we talk about the reconstruction and why it's so vitally important, we prioritize this because of service-related wear and degradation due in part to de-icing chemicals used on the roadway, but more specifically, recognizing those intersections aren't just bearing the weight of a rail car consist. You had buses, garbage trucks, standard vehicular traffic compromising the integrity of that embedded track due to the fact that it's not dedicated right of way. And so we want to ensure that we can invest in the network for an additional 30 years. And so as you know, phase 1 of the project involved the full depth reconstruction of the 5 intersections in the downtown loop. And the phases 2, 3, and 4 will commence 2025/2026, and I'll get into that momentarily. But it's important to note, when I came before you in March and when I was doing monthly updates last year, that the numbering of these phases does not necessarily correspond to the order or their importance, but are rather segmented to denote the focus of the specific sections. And one thing that's critically important as we go forward, we will ensure that you are made aware, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But just as a gentle reminder, I know I've showed this before, but this gives you from a graphic vantage point the full depth reconstruction, because when you see the paved tracks, you do not have an opportunity to see what is happening subterraneanly relative to the duct bank, the sub-ballast, the ballast, because all of those can shift. Unlike what you see with our commuter rail, where the ballast, for those that may not be aware, I'm talking about the rocks that you see with the railroad ties and things of the like. And so happy to say last year that we did complete phase 1, and it was very successful. And in the sense that we've learned some lessons, and as we go forward, we will be in this cycle of renewal. Phase 2, what I do want to call out, these rail segments in these areas between the intersections undergoing reconstruction last year will be reconstructed in phase 2, and this will impact the D, H, and L lines. As it relates to phase 3, full depth rail reconstruction will take place along a segment of track that runs parallel to Colfax. Momentarily, you will see that we are carving out a piece, and that's what's before you on unanimous consent relative to the Kalamath crossing of Colfax. And it's important to note that this work does not include any segments near the Colorado Convention Center, as that was subject to recent targeted repairs because the Convention Center is newer, considering that this rail network opened back in 1994. And the D and H lines will be impacted. And so phase 3 right here, the Kalamath Street crossing, just want to take a quick second to orient you to the work that we have planned here. So this is at grade crossing as part of RTD's original light rail line, and it's served by the D and H lines out of the downtown loop. And approximately 16 trains traverse this section each hour, not to mention vehicular traffic as well. So quickly, this graphic showcases the Calumet Street crossing and the work that's entailed and what we plan to do. If this board adopts the service changes on August 31st, the schedule that is being put forward would basically accommodate the Calumet Street crossing from September 2nd to November 27th, and in turn would be in alignment with the next service change as we go forward. As I talked about, it's full depth rail reconstruction. And then as we talk about the whole aspect of consistent service delivery, we want to ensure the operational safety and integrity of our network. And the alternative services, as we talk about, we are capitalizing on what we have done previously. The D line will be rerouted to Denver Union stations. There's the routes 0 and the 0 Limited that'll be available, and Route 43 for L line service. And this quickly, as I already talked about, proposed August service changes, so I'll move on from this and I'm just about finished. And then the Welton Street corridor, again, full depth reconstruction of track along the Welton corridor between Welton and Broadway, the intersection in 30th and Downing. And the L line, of course, would be impacted. So really quickly, next steps. So keeping in mind where we are right now, in June, staff is finalizing the communications plan relative to the tactics and the strategies that I showcased on the previous slide. July, board actions associated with this, i.e. progressive design build contract for phases 2, 3, and 4, and of course the August service changes. If in fact this is approved, the service changes, they would go into effect the 31st, then we would subsequently have the work that would commence concluding in November, as I indicated, Calumet, and then the next phases starting in 2026. And so with that, that concludes my presentation as well as my report to the board. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to all of you all for your time.
Thank you very much, General Manager Johnson, for that detailed report and detailed presentation. It's greatly appreciated. Directors, any questions or comments for the GMCO at this time? Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Johnson. All right, moving on, we're going to move on to unanimous consent. There are 6 items on the unanimous consent agenda listed under Section 16, Actions A through F. Those items are for the authorization for General Manager and CEO for the Central Park Development, the Calumet Rail Reconstruction Project Contract Award, Light Rail Operating Facilities and Security Command Center Replacement HVAC Contract Award, the 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report and Report to Governance, the State Lobbying Service Contract, and then finally the appointment of Chair Bouquet to Senate Bill 25-161 Accountability Committee. Are there any items that we'd like to pull from unanimous consent? Okay. I will not be opposed to that as well. So seeing none, may I have a
I would move to
approve the
unanimous
consent agenda?
Let's go.
And enthusiastically seconded.
I have Guzman as the mover, and then I have Whitmore as the second. Is there any discussion? Or is there no discussion? Actually, it's unanimous consent. So is there any no votes on that? Oh my goodness gracious. This is a first right here, folks. All right. So that will pass 13-0 and 2. All right. Moving on. Report of director activities. Any activities we'd like to report, directors? I see Secretary Nicholson, Treasurer Banker, and Director Guzman. Secretary and Director Chandler. Nicholson, you are recognized.
Thank you. So I am actually up at the Colorado Municipal League conference this week, and I'll be speaking with city leaders from across the state about the awesome work that we are doing, and just, building those connections to facilitate, all the things that we're going to be doing in the future. So very excited for it. And thank you to the board office for facilitating and making this an easy process to get registered for.
Excellent. Great job representing Secretary. Treasurer Banker.
Yes, just a quick FYI, the city of Longmont, we're putting on an educational event with regard to Northwest Rail. It's going to be on July 14th at the Longmont Museum. We've got quite a few elected officials that have been invited, and so far everyone's accepted. We're hoping to get a couple of hundred people from our communities to just talk about Northwest Rail and everything that where we are to date. And so everyone is invited. So if you can, please come. I know it's a long drive, but you're welcome to come.
Thank you, Treasurer. Director Guzman.
I was asked in the beginning of this year by my constituents to make sure that I was doing as much training as possible. I've taken full advantage of the ability to do the NTI courses and receive several certifications. This month I worked on a class that took 3 days, and it was the crisis communication for transit management. After that class, was able to work back with General Manager CEO Johnson and our Chief Communications Officer Stuart Summers about how we do things here at RTD. As a board member, it's an interesting place because we're not often in the loop of communication around a crisis, and there's a reason for that. But there's also a need, because we are public officials, to get information regarding crises that are happening in the district when it's an appropriate time. And so I would just want to suggest to all of you, if you have the opportunity to look at those classes, take advantage of them, because there's quite a bit of information that helps. But that's one more certification to add to this year's work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director. Director Chandler.
I had the privilege of speaking to the Aurora Ward 3 update, Mr. Medina's group, and it was really good. It was very well received, and I think that area of Aurora, it doesn't get a whole lot of love. So I really am excited to start interacting with more and more of the Aurora City Council members. And this afternoon, I was able to represent RTD at the State of the Aurora Luncheon, and I think it was really well received, having Mayor Kaufman speak about how a lot of transit is going on because of BRT headed out there towards Anschutz Center, and Anschutz is going through a major redevelopment area. They're really excited and partnering. They got a update from the Colorado Commission on college and education system, where now that hundreds of acres out there is going to be redeveloped. And I think it's exciting to see how RTD can really partner out there with what's going on in the outer reaches out there near Anschutz. So thank you.
Thank you, Director. Director Catlin.
Pardon my moment of privilege. I was going through a bunch of old stuff at my house, purging and going through some records, and I ran across a document from 32 years ago that was a roster of the 50 for Colorado leadership team that I was on. And lo and behold, I came across the name of Jim Brendel. And I knew when he was appointed to our audit committee that there was something gnawing at me, that he was, I knew that I had run across him before, and he was in my class for a year.
Cool.
And so we reconnected, and that was just kind of a fun moment, but it also pointed to the fact that we've both gotten pretty old. So anyway, that was just fun. So just wanted to share that little coincidence.
Thank you, Director. Any other director activities? Just as a reminder, directors, please make sure you are documenting those. By the way, when you are out and about meeting with your stakeholders, we are going to review those in July, and looking forward to seeing everything and everyone you've met. Okay, moving on to other matters. Okay, I just want to say, this might be a record right here with the quickest board meeting ever. So with no other matters, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have Whitmore as the mover, and we are